In a world of divisiveness, we bring you diversity. In a world of hate, we bring you love. In a world of fear, we inspire you to live. And now, laughing, loving, and alive with your hosts Rain Thomas, Elmer J. Howard, and Dr. Kevin.
Hello.
I am.
Hello, darlings. Oh, are you really?
Who are you?
I am
Who
Magic
are you again?
Mike.
I don't know
okay.
I don't know about how much magic there was in his mic. There was an awful lot of sounds like Crusadus, though, before we went on air. You know those little bugs in South Carolina, palmetto bugs, cicadas? They call them. They call them different things all over the country, but they always refer to them with lots of four-letter words around them, no matter what they call them.
Okay, then. Well, I guess if he's Magic Mike, that would make me, I don't know who that would make me. That one threw me. All right, so I'm Pippi Longstockings tonight.
So, Magic Mike and Pippi Longstockings had a love child. And that's me.
And your name would be?
Brutus.
It wouldn't be Pippi Long Mike?
Magic Longstocking? Maybe Magic Longstocking.
It could be that too. How's everybody doing?
Mr. Elmer, tell us how you're doing.
Pretty good. Busy with the film stuff, getting contracts written and trying to move this forward so we can get some investors in. And a secret project that Dr. Kevin and I are working on, which is also a lot of contracts and paperwork. But otherwise, doing well. How about you guys?
Yeah,
Ms.
Dr. Kevin.
Rain.
Yeah.
Well, so I have two things, and then something I want to get back to in a second. But I want to. I'm doing well. I'm up to my eyeballs preparing for my master astrology class that I'm teaching. So I'm doing handouts left and right. And tomorrow Mercury goes retrograde.
So I've heard.
So, and people really don't understand that Mercury going retrograde is really just a time to go inward, to pause, to think things through, and to double check everything, to triple check everything. There are going to be a few delays. There's going to be some communication issues. Emails get lost. Mail gets lost. Suddenly you realize you're getting ready to sign a contract and you realize you just gave away your fourth generation, third cousin's child because somebody put in a typo and nobody caught it. So, Mercury retrograde is a wonderful time to do introspection and look at things and clear your own internal communication and see things clearer so that you can make positive change when Mercury goes direct. You just don't want to make the change until it goes direct. So, and I was born with Mercury retrograde in my natal chart, so it works. It's a ease time for me. It's like going right back and having all of that I was born with, which is a huge internal dialogue. Big surprise.
Mm-hmm.
And you, Miss Rain?
Lots of things.
What?
Before we get to you, let's just say some quick highs that we have coming in. Keep our
Oh,
audience
there's
members
Elizabeth.
high. Elizabeth saying hi. Your friend Brent.
Hey, who that?
Hey, Miss Elizabeth.
Oh,
Hey,
Bethany.
Brent. Hey, Beth.
Who else is out
Welcome,
there? I know
welcome,
they're all
welcome.
coming.
That's it for now. That's the only comments we have so far. So,
Any
Rain,
comments?
how's the last 2 weeks been for you?
Busy. There's some, of course, secret things I can't talk about, but one of them I can actually talk about. So, there's a company and they're called Care Beauty. I don't know if you can see that. Care Beauty. Dun, 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 dun,
Okay.
dun, 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 dun. And they do some amazing cosmetic and skin stuff and all that wonderful stuff. I saw them on Instagram quite some time ago, created by women. And so I reached out and said, hey, maybe we can do something. Let's talk about it because, I love things, natural skincare, that kind of stuff. And so she sent me complimentary samples of some of the stuff they have here. And for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, I'm going to be like their spokesperson and ambassador. And I have my own code so people can get a discount. It's RAIN and the number 10 years. So for 10 years, so you can try it. And they're all over the place. They're actually out of New York City. So super nice, really nice company, really nice women looking after women. And I'm hoping when I put it out there on Facebook on October 1st, because the code will last from the 1st to the 31st, I'm hoping everybody will go in and support these dynamic women and their products because there's serums and they have masks and all sorts of stuff for like menopause and just wonderful. So I'm excited. Yay, me!
But I don't want to pause my men anymore. I finally found a good one.
You're going to pause your men in the name of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I think October 18th, somebody told me was National Menopause Day or something. So I'm sure I'll have some survivors because, of course, how I am about ingredients and things that go on people's skin. And this is just beautiful. They have beautiful packaging, which you can't really see, but CAIRE. Look it up while you're home. This part doesn't come with it. That's my own personal dance.
So yeah, I saw you saying that you had a lot of stuff coming in, and if we knew any survivors, of course, my sister's one.
Well, you know what? I need some addresses because I have donors that are mailing people surprises. Stuff doesn't even have to come from me, but I have a ton of donations at my house there's the chatter again.
Elmer, I was going to say, fix your chatter. Mute Elmer.
So I have all these donations and wonderful people giving me stuff, and I don't want to say their names because, if they pick somebody, then they'll know it's from them. But I have so many lovely things here, and they need to get in the mail from me and other donors who are like, can I send something? And of course, I'm going to do that fundraiser. I've been doing it, but on the 1st of October, I'm really going to start to push it.
Okay.
So if you want her to have something, please let me know.
Yeah, I'll text you. I'll text you.
Okay.
And let you know.
Okay, because I have some people that want to send some things out. So.
Yep. So what else is going on?
For me, or for in general, or?
Well, I mean, I have a couple other things I want to share, but I want to make sure that I find out what's going on with you.
I can't tell you any more stuff. I even asked and they're like, no, not yet. I'm like, okay, so I guess next time. But for now, it's just Claire. Dun, 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 dun.
Yep. Well, I think by next time, Elmer and I'll be able to share the secret thing we have going on. It's just all full of secrets. But I do want to let the audience know I received in the mail from a fictional boutique called Rainwear. I don't know if I can get that on. Rainwear, the Never Alone collection, handmade with love, a lilac and sea salt, not one, but two, lilac and sea salt candles, because Rain remembered me talking about that being a fragrance that always stayed with me from my childhood that I associated with very positive things. And she had a chemist create it for me. And so I wanted to, first of all, thank her publicly on air. And then I wanted to share something for her that I created for her on air.
I am ready.
It's called Deeply. Your gift has touched me deeply. It shows that you listened to me deeply. Your gift was the child, love, your caring, and creativity. You took your time invested in our relationship. You made me feel deeply. You made me feel heard. You made me feel seen. You showed me your depth. You shared your extraordinary being with me. I love you deeply for this, my friend. Dedicated to my friend, Rain Thomas.
Yay! I love that. That's so beautiful. You know, it was my pleasure to do that. I know that smell all too well, that fragrance, and it reminds me of being in the Hamptons. And
Mm-hmm.
when you said lilac and sea salt, and you know, the young lady who was doing them said, "So you mean lavender?" I said, "No, no, no, no. I mean lilac." She's like, "Well, that's a different essence." Yes, it is.
Is. Oh, yes, yes. So now Rain has corrupted me and has me snorting on air.
I love it. Did you burn it yet? Do you smell? I don't even know.
No, no, I keep it and I just open it and because once I start burning it, then it's going to be gone. So
Yeah.
I'm treasuring it. So I keep it. I have a couple of different candles that I keep and I keep them there and then I'll just pick them up and I'll go, and then I seal them again and I'll get
Yeah.
around, at some point.
Me too.
So,
They don't make them anymore. It was hard to get, and I refused to burn it and let it go. I get it. But I'm glad you enjoyed it. I hope it was close to the fragrance you remember.
it certainly was.
Good.
So and I will let you know when your poem gets published in one of my collections.
I would love that. I'm going to get your audiograph. You know that.
Yes, yes. I've started doing TikToks.
Really, I have not.
Yes, I've started doing TikToks, and I'm actually doing one because I had another poetry book come out recently. I don't have it within hand's reach, but I have a hard copy of Thoughts from a Renaissance Man, which is 81 pieces of my original poetry. So this is my fourth book out, and we've got another one or two coming out before the end of the year that are poetry. And my science fiction, I think, is out this month, along with the app. So
Okay.
lots of stuff. But so I've tried to do and the first thing I decided I would do is I've got these things that I'm calling them poetry pop-ups. And I pop up in front of the
I saw them
camera
on Instagram. Yeah.
So,
Oh boy.
yeah, I have joined the world of TikTok. So, anybody got anything else before we move on to tonight's guest?
That would be you, Elmer.
Nope, everything's still in the works for me. No new awards.
Nothing. I thought we were going to get past this without that tonight, but apparently not. Nobody likes
course
a
not.
braggart, okay?
Yes.
Nobody.
Well, for all of the awards that Elmer has received, we know that not any of them were for diplomacy.
None. None. At all. At all.
Oh. So, I think, well, tonight's guest actually came through me, but you were the one that interviewed him for the show. Because of his book, he just had a book come out January 18th, Inside the Mind of a Bully, From Victim to Advocate. It came out on January 18th for the start of No Name Calling Week. Now, if they had no name calling for a whole week, what did all the political analysts do? They must have just turned off their cameras and no. I'm not saying anyone in particular. I'm just saying everybody in general is that. So the book explores how bullying affects school shootings, racial and ethnic profiling, academic achievements. Our guest, Dr. Claudio Cerullo, who likes who likes to go by Dr. C. But as we bring him on, I actually wrote in December 4th of 2017 a poem called Bullying. So I'm going to read it, and then we're going to bring on Dr. C. I thought that would be an appropriate introduction for him.
I like it.
Bullying. Wounded, you bully. Powerless, you bully. Angry, you bully. Lost, you bully. Hopeless, hurting, suffering, defenseless, cowardly, victimized, you bully. Every self-righteous group, organization, and religion bullies. Each bullied person becomes wounded, powerless, angry, lost, hopeless, hurting, defenseless, cowardly, and victimized, either and or both, becoming a bully or a victim, abusive or self-abusive, aggressive or passive-aggressive, until they heal, forgive, and most importantly, realize it was never about them. Welcome, Dr. C.
Thank you, everyone. Dr. Kevin, I love it. I love your poem. It hit home with me on so many levels. So thank you for that. And thank you to all of you for having me on the show this evening.
I love it. Did you bring us, before we start, Dr. Kevin, I want to know if he is mailing me a Philly cheesesteak. That's all I want to know.
You know, we can do tasty cakes. I think they would be less perishable to get to you.
Probably, sure. But I don't eat sweets and sugar, so I'm going to need you to figure out how you can get that cheesesteak here.
Down here in South Philly, you've got 3 places to choose from here in South Philly.
I know.
I know. Fresh and right off the oven.
All right, I'll let you get by.
When you come to the East Coast, you're gonna have to drive through Philly. You're gonna have to land in Philly, get your cheesesteak, and then drive up to us.
Yeah,
that's exactly it.
I had to do that. I've been to Philly many times. I love Philly.
Me too.
So, Dr. C, you so I want to start with, you talk about your book came from a place that you were yourself a victim of bullying. At what point in your own process of dealing with bullying did you come to that realization that it was never about you?
You know, my story commences, I think, way back 1974, immigrating to the United States. And for me, it was growing up in an impoverished household with a very authoritative father and a mother who was just a wonderful human being and did the best to raise four children. And the disparity between my siblings are 19, 17, and 14. So I often refer to myself as a Catholic accident at 43 when my parents had me. The tragedy of my situation really about me or not about me. You know, I think what happens is whenever we're born, that we are bred to be something wonderful in life and whatever we do. And the challenge is how people perceive you And in many cases, you know, you were referencing politics and we talk about sports, and a lot of people want to keep people down who are excel in life and whatever they excel in. And growing up in a very Italian community, Easton, Pennsylvania, which is known for Larry Homes and the Crayola factory, and the longest college rivalry in the country, Lafayette, Lehigh, and high school rivalry in Peaburg and Easton in this country, you have to be very tough. And for me, I suppose being poor and not being very tough, kids made it about me in the sense that they wanted to keep me down. And they kept me down because they knew that I was a talented athlete. And I think their fear factor was that this guy has a lot of speed, strength, and he's going to take a position away from us. So the idea was, I think, they did whatever they could do to destroy my intrinsic self and value. And like with most kids growing up today in any community in the United States, especially those in impoverished communities, they don't have that value system. They feel defeated or deflated. There are many kids like me who were English language learners, did not speak English very well, or impoverished and don't have the attire to blend in, and it all starts in middle school. And that's where my trauma began, in the sense that the story unfolds in that kids decided to throw rocks at my face. They shattered my nose. I've had probably 6 or 7 reconstructive surgeries. My front teeth were all shattered. I never told my parents. I threw my bloody clothes away and said nothing, because my father would have probably beat me worse than what kids did to me. And that was a time where social media wasn't prevalent, so no one really knew, except for when you went to school the next day. And then the laughter occurs when I didn't know much about applying ice to my face. I didn't want to tell my parents. I threw the bloody clothes away. And then it was trying to deal with the aftermath of kids saying, you know, they talked about the incident. And then it was 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. I had a big ski slope on my nose. It was, ask Claudio, the nose always knows. And the jokes commenced. Trouble dating, because nobody wanted to date somebody with a big nose. And as I wanted to share with my father that I wanted plastic surgery, he would say, that's your nose. It's your Roman nose. You were born that way. So little did he know I never said anything, like many kids. And that's why I often refer to bullying as the silent threat. And it's a silent threat because you may be happy and go lucky today, and then tomorrow there's an empty seat in the classroom because a child or an adult takes his or her life. And when you look at the ideology of suicide and what we're dealing with in this country right now being the second leading cause of death, I could have been a statistic like many kids today at around 4,400 a year take their lives. So an issue is similar to mine. And while most kids don't make it about themselves, you know, I've learned over the years through social media that now many of these kids who used to torture me during that early 80s, you know, they're now parents themselves, and they have often apologized, saying, I see what you do around the country and we're sorry for what we did to you. And that's fine. We can apologize. However, those intrinsic scars, you know, from an emotional standpoint are so deep rooted, and the trauma is set forth in there. And now it's, you know, you deal with it, but I see it every day, the hundreds upon hundreds of stories I get regarding kids just like me, you know, who are no longer in classroom seats come Monday morning because of what happened on Friday afternoon. So
who do you think you would have become, which would have been very different if you hadn't been bullied?
You know, I that's a good question, Dr. Kevin. And I think that had I not been bullied, I don't think that I would have had the same level of passion. And I refer to myself to that Rocky Balboa personality, that because I didn't have the dates Friday and Saturday nights, I would be out on Northampton Street at 10 o'clock running. I would be in my basement lifting. And that's why perhaps I was a national class bodybuilding bodybuilder for over 10 years. I was a state champion in 2 sports, in track and in wrestling, and I played football. I took all of the aggression I had out on being the most muscular, strongest person I could be physically, but intrinsically I was destroyed as a human being until probably after I probably turned 32 years of age. And then I said, it's kind of interesting because then I didn't really care about how other people felt. I said, I'm going to take on the world, and I would date as many girls as I needed to, maybe 6, 7 at a time. I wasn't very considerate at times. It's almost like I went from the victim to the bully himself, which isn't, uncommon. But I think had I not been bullied, I wouldn't have had the same level of empathy that I have today for victims like myself, and would probably have never been an advocate. I can assure you of that. So who knows? Whenever someone goes through any trauma in their lives, it often changes the trajectory and the perspective of how they see things. And I often think that's the one key element that's missing in this social justice world. And you can look at a George Floyd incident, or you can look at an Adam Lanza incident that occurred at Sandy Hook, or whatever tragedy happens in our nation. And if you can't see it from the perspective of someone being victimized, I question whether you're truly a human being. And that's one element that's missing today in any level of school, organization, politics, or just blatant being a human being.
Well, it's very interesting because oftentimes I teach a lot of different classes and courses, and I work with people who want to do similar things to me, forms of alternative healing. I'm a spiritual coach and counselor. Mm-hmm. And it's a consistent thing of those people that came to do the greatest healing and create the greatest good in the world consistently come from abused or bullied or somehow traumatized past, almost as if it's a requirement by putting that personality, and very, very different personalities. I've been doing what I've been doing for over 30 years. So I've seen a lot of personalities. But through the forge of life, and that fire is if it does, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger.
Correct.
Unfortunately, as you've pointed out, a lot of times it's killing people.
It is.
And in my personal community, the LGBTQ community, correct, they're the highest percentage of those correct suicides.
I'm a big component here in Philadelphia. I work with state legislator. He is one of the best on the House floor. He's, homosexual, and he's very active about it. He wants to run for governor here in Pennsylvania. And, he's been victimized a lot, and we go through it in our schools, whether it's a GSA club. It's an intolerable, act of cowardliness and act of violence and act of hate. And it can even parallel to COVID. Some folks, if they don't get it, they're the type of people who say, well, don't get the vaccine, or, sometimes, and you're absolutely right. You have to go through that trauma oftentimes in life to see things differently from a different lens, unfortunately.
So a lot of times, and I would love your take on this, a lot of times I find that at the core of the bullies are the disempowered, the people that are coming from disempowered homes. Like, one of the things that I want to actually ask you about is, how realistic was your fear that if you went home and told your father you were being bullied, that he would have in turn bullied you himself?
Listen,
he would.
I don't say this very often, but I was, by today's standards, now you can talk to any Italian you want in this world, and they're going to refer to people as old school Italians. My father was as abusive as it comes.
Yeah.
I mean, I bordered on being an abused kid, and that's not uncommon. But what my father did, that's not common. because he grew up without having parents. They died very young. So my aunt had to raise 3 siblings at the age of 17, which is a major undertaking. So you always talk about the intake and you look at the dynamics of family and the social culture of family. So it all starts with that. And my father was a loving person, but he didn't know how to demonstrate that. So being abusive at times was his way to keep his kids in line. And he was the godfather, like Don Corleone, and I was Michael Corleone. So in a very protective way, he tried to protect me in a very abusive manner by saying, this is the way it's going to be. And if you don't listen, you won't be here. And the for example is that when I was 21, and as we all turn 21, you go to those clubs and you stay out till the clubs close. I had to be home by 12. Now, my friends didn't understand the anxiety that caused, and I would look at my watch and they would be, why do you look so nervous? If I wasn't home by 12, my father put a deadbolt behind the door, and my mother had to stay in the steps because he would go to bed and say, he's not here. I'm going to lock him out and he can find a place to stay. So my mom, the poor woman, would stay up and open the deadbolt. When I turned 24, my father had developed emphysema by that time, COPD, and he had an oxygen cord. And I legitimately had a date, and the girl had a flat tire, and I came home and I saw the kitchen light on, and I knew that I would be crucified. So the fear factor was he took the oxygen cord, that metal, that plastic, hard plastic cord you have in your nose, and he whipped me that I had scars all over my shoulders and my face. And on Sunday dinner, as we typically gathered, my brother at the oldest said, how did you get all these scars? These cuts. I said, well, Pat, I lied. I was cutting the bushes. I got caught up in the bushes, and he knew that wasn't the case, but I would never, rat out my dad. So I said nothing and, went back to doing whatever. So the fear was very fearful. In fact, if you ask my family today why I still walk on my tiptoes, it wasn't from being a sprinter. It was from trying to not wake him up to be abused. And it got to the point where he had to get sick that I had him by his throat one time, and I said, "You ever put your hands on my mom again, that will be the last thing you do." But the irony, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish your sentence.
The irony of it is that when he passed away, I was 27 years old. He was 70, and it was such a loss of life because he was just. I loved them dearly, but I don't. It's hard to resent what I went through. He made me a very strong, different person today. Like I would never hurt my kids. I would never hit my kids. And I don't think that hitting a child today in any way, shape, or form teaches them anything. So it shed me to be a very humble person, a very soft kind of guy. He taught me a lot of skill sets that I inherently have today. I don't resent him for it. I think the way he went about things was just not the right approach, and that was his way. And if you didn't like it, you just had to figure out what to do. That's the old school mentality. I mean, there's still probably parents out there like that today. I'm not saying it's right, but most kids today, they get away with a lot because they don't get that little bit of smack around kind of thing. They're not held accountable. Mine was more abusive in nature.
So first of all, I'd like to make it very clear for our audience, especially because we never know who's listening. And especially having a topic like bullying, we have kids that may be watching this show or will watch this show because of that title, because they're being bullied.
Correct.
And so I have to say, there is nothing borderline about your abuse as a child. You were abused as a child. What you have done to come terms with it and how it has helped you to help other people is a wonderful and marvelous thing. But I don't want any child listening to this going, well, my dad or my mom doesn't beat me as much as his did. He said his was borderline, so I'm not really being abused. No, guys, you're being abused. If you're getting beaten, if there's marks being left, you need to speak out.
That's correct.
And you need to get help and get support, and they need to get help and they need to get support, because clearly your father was a tortured man in many ways.
Correct.
And so I have to make that clarification.
Yes,
There is no borderline.
And that goes for women as well who are in abusive situations.
Yep.
That's why bullying. When we talk about bullying, we talk about domestic violence, child molestation, elderly victimization, child abuse. They're under the same umbrella. The criteria is the same in many ways. And you're right. And we're mandated reporters. And if I see a mark on a child, I'm calling, Children Youth Services right away, and that's the end of it, And I have to agree with you, Dr. Kevin. That's the way it is.
So now the other thing is, and so I also want to build out just on what you said, and then I have another question for you, which is that abuse is not also gender. There are men out there that get abused by women, but we always hear, female abuse. And so I just want to make it clear, you can be a male and be abused.
That is correct.
You can be an adult male and you can be getting abused. And so I just wanted to put that little thing, because it's almost like we all say the same thing if we're not careful, because it tends to be the language we use. And then it disenfranchises the guy that says, well, I guys don't get abused. So I don't have, and I want to strip away all of those excuses for people to not ask for help.
That is correct. And oftentimes, Kevin, it may not even be physical, but the mental and emotional abuse far exceeds the pain of being slapped in the face. And there's many, many women out there that abuse their husbands or significant others or partners in such a belittling and embarrassing way that it's, and trust me when I tell you, the intrinsic scars of being emotionally abused, you can heal from a slap in the face, and I'm not condoning it, but I'm saying that, but those intrinsic scars of things that often are so manipulative in nature, most people never recover without extensive therapy.
Oh yeah, I know. So now, oftentimes, and I want to see if this has been your experience as well, and if you covered this in the book or if you talk about this, is that there is almost an imprinting that happens. I know that's been my experience in my practice. There's almost an imprinting. So that child, like yourself, who was being bullied and abused at home, it's almost as if you radiated victim at school.
Correct.
And so, what I consistently find is the child being bullied at home has two choices. They either decide, I'm going to go and bully somebody else, or I'm just going to accept that I'm a victim. And so is that your experience as well? Is this something you talk about in the book? But I want people to understand, you as a parent set your child up for the things that happen to them when you act in an emotional, mental, or physically bullying way. So I'd like your thoughts and anything you'd like to share.
No, that is absolutely true. I mean, you can look at a person like Richie Incognito, who bullied Jonathan Martin, as a football player. He was a bully since the 5th grade. And typically a lot of young people who were bullied become bullies themselves. Some remain the victim, and ultimately tragedy strikes and they take their lives. Or you look at Michael Harris and Dylan Klebold, who end up shooting 13 victims at Columbine High School, among many active shooters. Or they become the bystanders in life. And maybe, they're leaning over someone or watching someone's life being taken, like in the George Floyd incident. You're only going to go in several ways. I often say that when people are victimized, and whatever victimization occurs, if they don't get the therapeutic support that they need, there'll always be that underlying trauma in some way, shape, or form. And if they don't get help into adulthood, that person who turns lethal as a supervisor and becomes a bully themselves, that's the same person that's going to sexually harass you in the workplace. It's going to rape you on a college campus, may bring a weapon to your, the FedEx warehouse. That's how deep rooted some of these scars go. And without, again, the therapy factor or clinical support, they'll often either, again, take their own life because they haven't dealt with that intrinsic or inherent trauma. And they'll either subject, like I said, pain to themselves or pain to whatever community they're in.
So, do you think, how much is it that bullying is on the rise, and how much of it is our constant obsession with 24-hour a day, 7-day a week news cycle / social media has made it seem that bullying is on the rise? Which do you think it is? What is your experience?
So let me share the data. The data is that since 2006, that's when bullying became a tagline by CNN with the death of Phoebe Prince out of Boston, Massachusetts. She took her life, and they spoke about bullying. Next thing you know, bullying itself, which ironically, back in the 1400s, bullying meant friend, lover. It was a great positive, word. And now we think of bullying, you can come up with every negative term for it you want, but it certainly doesn't mean friend. But it has not been on the decline at all in this country since 2006. We've had 377 total school shootings. And of those 377, we've had 291 directly related to bullying, with 117 from 20 to 21 alone. Not to mention the workplace violence that occurred by an active shooter. And if Satan exists on earth, which we know he does, he developed social media. And in developing social media, kids with TikTok, you mentioned, Snapchat, Musical.ly, certainly Facebook, Instagram, and every other social media platform or news outlet, it gets, in fact, exacerbated. And they will do everything in their power to create fake platform sites, fake Instagrams, fake Facebook posts, different types of profiles to torture someone. And when we look at those who are being tortured, they're those, in the disabilities community, certainly, the gay, lesbian community, tortured daily because of, the cowards that are out there to hide behind these social media platforms. There's been no decrease in bullying in any state. Not every state has legislation in this country, which is, I live in one of them in Pennsylvania. I'm still trying to fight for a bill. I work with Governor Christie in New Jersey. We have the most extensive policy there. But that's another problem. We have no teeth behind, there's no real law in certain cases to hold those.
Oh, it looks like Dr. C froze. Hopefully he'll come back. Oh, there he is.
He's back.
He's back.
I was saying, unless you strip somebody of their social media title like they did with President Trump, kids will just, and adults will continue in that behavior of mass destruction.
Okay, so
Kevin, before you keep going, I want to interject a little bit here. We're about 45 minutes in, so we don't have much time left, and this has been a really it's been a good conversation, but it's been really heavy, and so I want to make sure we get a little bit of our title, Laughing, Loving, and Alive, into the show. So, Dr. C, I want to know, tell us, after your life experience, what makes you laugh, what makes you feel loved, and what makes you feel alive.
So here's when I laugh. I don't I laugh knowing that every day we're alive. Listen, you got to count your blessings. I say this every gosh darn day. You are better thank whatever God you attest to that you're alive in this particular pandemic. Kiss the people you love in your life. I don't care if it's your dog, your cat, whoever. Okay, and thank God that you are blessed with another day of breathing. I mean that, and I don't laugh ha ha at that. I laugh to say, man, thank you, Jesus. Number one. I smile every day that I can help somebody who has nothing or has less than what I have. And that's part why I started my Sneakers for Smiles initiative, where I've hit 500 pairs of sneakers now in less than a year to impoverish children who have been bullied because I didn't have cool stuff. I had, if you remember the adage, Bobos, they cost $1.99, make it yourself fine. So kids don't really know that when I sing that song, but knowing that I had zips, which nobody knew what they were, but I'm blessed to be able to bring a smile, and I'm smiling every day that I see positives that go on when people do wonderful things like the three of you do, to draw attention to an issue and say, how can we help somebody be able to wake up the next day and breathe and smile and take that and channel it to be selfless, give back. When Michael Jackson passed away, you didn't see a U-Haul in that procession. Kobe Bryant, there was no U-Haul in that procession. Give it back, man. Help people. You know, everybody's a taker. And I say in this world, you're a taker or you're a giver. So decide what you want to be and find that circle of people who are like you, givers, and stay away from the takers and those selfish people that are about making money and smiling because they have big houses and big cars. If that's what it's all about, I wish there was a state or a country where I could be with the same type of people. It's unfortunate we're among everybody that's around us, and you got to weed out the ones you don't want to be with. But I try to smile by saying I'm going to do something good for somebody every week. And as we enter National Anti-Bullying Month beginning Friday and Breast Cancer Awareness Month beginning Friday, you got a lot of time, not only in 31 days, but in 365 days to do something good for somebody. And I think if you're not doing good things, then you're not trying hard enough.
So I do want to point out that on our panel tonight, we do have a hybrid. We have Rain, and Rain is a hybrid. She is always taking from everybody else so she can give it to somebody else. But she's always calling somebody, begging for something to help somebody else. So she's both a giver and a taker. I just wanted to point that out.
That's okay. Yeah, but if you're taking for the good and giving it to people to help them, I'm not saying she's taking and putting it in her pocket and going to the bank with it.
I am, and they call me the shameless beggar.
Yeah, but that's okay. No, you're a philanthropist that you get in-kind things.
Yeah.
And you turn that around and give them back to people. So you're a philanthropist. That's a wonderful thing.
Well, thank you. That's good to know.
No, you can't take away my
You're
fun.
Robin Hood. That's who you are, Robin Hood.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, minus the steel part, just because I'm from the Bronx.
That's okay. Take it from corporate America and give it to those who have nothing.
Yeah, oh, well, that's a whole different show.
I understand.
So one of the things I'd like to, so I have one more serious question, and then I want to bring this over to 2 or 3 things you can share from your book to anybody who's being bullied.
Sure.
That can help them live better, be more alive, and do that. But I have one more serious question. So you talked about we needed to eliminate social media, you know, like Satan created social media, blah, blah. But isn't it not true that original bullying and judgment started with the church? Did not religion's judgment begin bullying?
True. Absolutely true. Yes. 120%.
And, you know, and I so often hear people justifying their judgments because of their religion, and they use it to bully people.
That is true.
Yeah.
It is in the Catholic Church, and I'm not going to get into the religion of things, but let me tell you,
that's another conversation and another show.
Unless you're perfect yourself, keep your mouth shut.
Yeah. Okay. So now, you know, I want to have you share a couple of things. Your book is called Inside the Mind of a Bully, From Victim to Advocate. I'm sure it's available on Amazon, and you're clicking again, Elmer.
I'm going to mute myself, but I'm going to put the link into our stream here so people can. He has it available at lulu.com. So
okay. Mobiles, Amazon, Walmart, Target.
Okay, and
lulu.com.
Put a link for his what is it? Sneakers for
Smiles
something
initiative. Yep.
Yeah, Sneakers with a Smile. We'll get that link out there. We always love to give people places where they can do good things, and you're doing some good things out in the world. But what tips would you share to help lighten the load to somebody right now who is being bullied?
The first thing is, look, you can call me at any time. You can call our organization at teachantabullying.org and know you're not alone. You have an advocate, an organization here at the great city of Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, and we will respond, and we generally respond very quickly to anyone who needs some support. The other tips that are very important for parents, grandparents, make sure that you preserve any and all text messages that come in. If it is a Snapchat text, you don't take a screenshot of it because it alerts the person on the other side that's tormenting you. You don't want to do that. Use another phone, use your parents' phone, grandparents' phone to preserve that particular message. So in case an administrator, a teacher, a counselor, or law enforcement needs that, preserve the email if it is in the form of harassment. If it's verbal in any way, shape, or form, document it. Please right away go to your parent, guardian, someone, an adult at school, to be able to document the situation. And if you're not getting there or anywhere in your school community, again, teachantabullying.org. You can call us 484-431-9711. I'm very responsive to helping a parent in need or a family in need or someone who wants to navigate through the perils of our education system, especially those who are classified special needs and don't know what their rights are or their civil rights under special ed or IDEA entitlements or 504 IEP, which is critical to protecting children with a disability or an adult with a disability. They are critical off the bat. Document. Okay, save any and all correspondence. So when somebody says, I need to see what's going on, it's very easy to help support a victim if there's a paper trail. And if you need this support and you're not getting anywhere, like most parents will call or email and say, I'm not getting through to my school board, superintendent, principal, I'm happy to support any parent or family that's in need or struggles in that arena.
So one of the things and that's great, that's all great, and knowing that there's a resource, knowing that there's somebody you can reach out to. One of the things that I always like to share, if I may, when I deal with people that are being bullied, because I work with kids as part of my practice. I have several books out on ADD and ADHD, and I work with that clientele. So obviously bullying happens there.
Sure.
I always say, the first thing I want you to remember is it's not about you. I know that's going to be hard because but if you can just stop and go, okay, this is not about me. And then you can take that step back, know that you need to go to somebody, your parent, a teacher, an organization, on how you can set a boundary, but do it with the compassion of, if they weren't hurting, they wouldn't be hurting you.
Correct.
If they weren't hurting, they wouldn't be hurting you. And so as you can step into that and you can kind of start to separate and go, okay, it's not about me. They're in pain. I'm their punching bag. That's not okay. That will never be okay. But now I need somebody who either has the power, the position, the skill sets, the talents of how do I set the boundary? How do I do it in a compassionate and loving way, knowing that they're hurting, that they're probably getting bullied somewhere. They may be getting bullied at home or at work or by their spouse. And that people who try to make you miserable are because they're miserable.
That's cool.
And I know when I work with especially kids, but adults as well, and I start to, do that, I can see their energy and the relationship to that experience start to shift and change. And so this is part of what, all of those resources are good, but if I know we're going to be up in a couple of minutes, but I would like to have anything along those lines that you might say to somebody being bullied, that you could add to what I've said, that gives them something to either hope or make them happy or something that they can grasp onto. What do you have to say, Dr.
Here's what I say, and this is my patented 3 non-negotiables that I tell kids all over the world, and they are: when you wake up in the morning, you look in that mirror, you say, "I'm beautiful." First thing you say, "I'm beautiful just the way I am." Then you say, "I have the right to get the best possible education my teachers have to offer me. And when I go through the threshold of a school, I should feel safe." They are my 3 non-negotiables, but it all begins by when you look in that mirror. And I did this when I had a broken nose and I couldn't breathe. I always said, I have a lot to offer the world. And I'm talented, I'm smart, I'm this, I'm that. Find it in your heart. And what we need to do, and you're right, when I tell my own, it's not about you. They have a problem. We often forget that the bully is suffering as well in many cases. So we talk about the victim, but we often forget the bully suffering himself. And that's a good point you make in that, because most people forget that. They want to retaliate and they want to lock up the bully, and we lock them up and they become incarcerated, but they need help too. And when they come out, we need to rehabilitate, not simply send them back to the same thing. But when it comes to these kids we need to empower them, involve them in their school community, find the inherent talent that they have. Every child, every adult has some inherent talent, a blessing to this world. Find that and move forward and circumvent those obstacles and those challenges of those other folks or adults in your whatever that are causing you that problem. And I know this is simple to say. Believe me, we can, theorize it all we want. And it's hard unless you're working with a kid and empowering a kid every day, or an adult who's going through it. But it all starts being able to empower them by waking up by saying, look, I'm beautiful and I have an inherent gift to give back to this world in whatever form it is. I need to find that. And I won't let anyone take me down.
I love that. I'm always saying to, no matter what the age is, that you are a unique gift to humanity.
Correct.
And as you become more of who you are, humanity is more blessed by your presence.
Correct.
In spite of itself some days.
That's right. That's right.
So, do you guys have any last questions before we announce what our guest is next week?
Yes, Dr. C, again, someone just sent me a question. They said, where can they get your book?
Sure. So lulu.com.
It's LULU?
.com, barnesandnobles.com, amazon.com, target.com, walmart.com.
Okay.
And just put Inside the Mind of a Bullying for Victim to Advocate. It's there in all those places.
Okay, excellent. I will let them know.
Thank you so much.
I know it's the invention of the devil, but is there any social media that people can find your inspiration on? Do you have a YouTube channel? Is there anything you put out, or are you
on everywhere? You can meet me at Claudio V. Cerullo, Dr. Cerullo on Facebook, Instagram at Dr. Claudio Cerullo. Same thing on Twitter. Look, it's a form of communication. I just think it's very destructive if we don't use it correctly. And I think that's where Satan plays in a different world. And the dark side, oftentimes, if it's used for good, just like with any modern technology, but people who use it in the wrong ways, it can be very destructive to mankind.
Yep.
Just like the nuclear weapon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's there was a fascinating myth about, there was a conversation between two of the gods in the ancient pantheon, and one said, I have invented the written, writing so we can keep track of things. And
correct.
And the other god said, I don't know that that's a good idea. And and went on to explain that the minute you write something down, it can be misrepresented, it can be played with, it can be all of these things. And I found that fascinating. As an author, as you are an author, we put stuff in writing, but the god had a point.
They did, and often, to your point, I say to kids and adults, you read what you just said before you hit send. Take a look
Oh,
at
yeah.
what you just said before you tweet it out. Make sure it's right, because once you hit send, you may not go to college, you may not get that job. So be very careful who's watching that social media post or page or wherever you think you're hiding.
All right, we've hit our hour mark, so we're over.
Thank you, everyone.
Next week we have Melissa Martin.
Week after.
Next show. We have in 2 weeks, the 10th on the 10th. We have Melissa Martin. She's personally knows me, Dr. Kevin, and Rain. She wrote the Conversations with Cooper book that we'll go over. Thank you, Dr. C. Thank
you, Elmer, Dr. Kevin, Rain.
For our audience, we have our world premiere of our outro. So let's see how this goes.
Thanks for watching or listening to the Laughing, Loving, and Alive show. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the show, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or support us with Buy Me a Coffee. To catch all of the latest from Laughing, Loving, and Alive, you can follow us on Instagram at Laughing, Loving, and Alive, and on Facebook at Laughing, Loving, and Alive. Thanks again, and see you next time.